probably a couple weeks. How do you choose the neighborhood that you want to go and don't like? How do how do you go about that? Which neighborhood, which zip code you think you'll have better success, and how do you decide that?
Okay, that's a great question. And you know what? Let's just stick on this because we're on this. I don't want to switch gears because this is going to be part of your business. One, when you're picking a neighborhood, it doesn't have to be the neighborhood you live in. So somebody asked me this before. They were like, well, do I have to be in my own neighborhood? No, you can pick any neighborhood. I love my neighborhood, like I said, but I door knock when my business allowed me to. I don't have as much time anymore, but I do not door knock my neighborhood. I door knock higher price point neighborhood because that's where I want to be. You know, that's the kind of neighborhood I want to sell in. So that's where I door knock. That's where I get to know. So like for instance, and some of the areas I door knock in Whittier are what's called it's the Mar Vista area and Mar Vista, oh God, what's the other? Michigan Park. Yeah, Michigan Park to Mar Vista, that entire section. One reason why I love door knocking that section, it literally is we have two streets, La Corda and Mar Vista, that are parallel, that go from boulevard to boulevard. And in between, it is a grid, all in between. There is no cul-de-sacs, nothing like that. You don't get into that until you pass Mar Vista and go into the hills. So if I door knock, I literally can go up, down, up, down, up, down. It's really easy for me to keep track. And even though it's like, well, there's that neighborhood, once you start door knocking, you realize, oh, you hit a number of blocks and it's hours because you've talked to people, you've interacted, you know, blah, 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 all of that kind of stuff. So it does take longer. Like the first day, if you say, I'm going to door knock 200 houses. Oh, unless you're running, good luck with that. Because it just takes a while, but it's good. I mean, it also lets you get the neighborhood well. Pick a neighborhood that also might have good turnover. For instance, that's a said neighborhood I just mentioned. We have a lot of older retired people in that neighborhood, or people that are retiring, you know, so, and a lot of times in that you're getting shifting that's taking place. People move for different reasons. The thing that can help with that is, like, let's say there's a neighborhood. So Carlos, let's say you're thinking to yourself, okay, I want to target the Miracle Mile area, because that was where I sold my first house. And it's easy for me to bring that up because I didn't know the area at all. When I first door knocked, I literally went home. I told, at the time, my boyfriend, now husband, but I told him, I'm like, babe, I'm selling a house in this area and I don't know anything about Miracle Mile. Where is it? I don't really know. I just know the directions to get there because that's where Apple told me to go, but I don't know where I really am. And he's like, oh, so I Google mapped it. I highlighted Miracle Mile and I printed it out and I posted it right at my desk. And so every day when I sat down at my desk, I looked and I'm like, that's Miracle Mile. Okay. You know, that's the area I'm working right now. And so it kind of began to get my, you know, okay, I know the streets. I know where this is. I know where that. Literally Miracle Mile, right on the other side is Carthay Circle, which is a farce because it's not a circle, it's a square, but we'll talk about that later. But it's, it was like, okay, that's the area I'm going to work. And then on top of that, you can talk to, like if you were to talk to Ven, our title rep, you can say, hey, here's a neighborhood I'm really interested in working, or even a zip code, you know, any of those things. You can do it like that. And he can give you the people that have been in residence like for 30 years or more, because those are the people that may be more ready to do some transitioning. You know, it kind of gives you that timeline when they're thinking about it. Sometimes it can even get more specific. I mean, if you think about what causes people to move, you know, they're retiring, they've outgrown their home. Oh, so what if there's a neighborhood with a lot of 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and you want to find people in their 30s or 40s? Why am I saying that? Well, they've popped out one kid and having 2 bedrooms is fine. Maybe even 3 because the last one's going to be an office. Oh, but what if they're thinking about popping out another kid? They're going to need another bedroom. And so they probably want to think about moving. That was one of my sales last year, is they loved their home and it was a gorgeous home. Ashley did open house at that house in Highland Park. And everybody who came and went, oh my God, this house is beautiful. And it's got a view and it's got this, but it only had 2 normal sized bedrooms and 1 tiny bedroom. And they needed one, they were thinking about it popping out another kid, and they also needed at least 1 home office, if not 2. So they had to move. Oh, and they're in their 30s. So like they were prime to be those people that needed more space. So that's when you can contact the title rep, and they can even break that down and allows you to target more. So let's say you're door knocking and you want to skip a home. I don't. I still door knock every home because you never know who they know. But it gives you an idea of like who may be there. Because what if you door knock and they're not home? Oh, you can leave your card. And if you think they're prime to somebody who may be moving in the near future, you can write them a card. By the way, I stopped by your home. It was a lovely home. I noticed that I would say that you're having beautiful roses in the front, even though we know Ashley is having her gardener do it. But, it'd be like you have some beautiful roses in the front, and it really stuck out to me. By the way, if you ever need anything, if there's any way I can help it anyway, even if it's just a referral to someone that might help you, please feel free to reach out to me. Here's my business card enclosed, and you can send them a card, because then that may give, that sort of connection, sort of thing. And when you're door knocking again, if they're home, it gives you a reason to, like, if they answer the door, hey, by the way, I'm Carlos. I've been around the neighborhood before. In fact, I sent you a card. I don't know if you received it, but it allows you to even have that kind of a conversation. Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. One question is, as far as like sending hand note and things like that, do you actually handwrite those notes, or you just type it in and spell it like that right now?
Handwrite. Because and let me tell you, my mother, she's 84 and she still has the same damn writing. She was a teacher for years, and her writing's perfect. Perfect. I mean, literally, she was the one that could write on the chalkboard, and it looked just like the handwriting they would show you as a kid you needed to write. In her checkbook, in everything, her handwriting's perfect. I didn't get that gene. My handwriting looks like shit. So when but I still handwrite notes, because it's going to mean more to the person receiving it. And so it doesn't have to be long. Don't think it has to be this long thing. It's just a personal note. Hey, really appreciate it, blah, 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 blah. I've written notes to the mayor of our city multiple times. And now it's gotten to the point where I see Joe at different functions and we're like, hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I know a lot of that has come from me just handwriting him notes, and it's built up that rapport. He sometimes writes me thank you notes back. They're super short and sweet. No big deal. I don't care. It's just that thought that really is what matters. So don't think, Carla, I don't know how your handwriting is, but also don't think it has to be, long, or has to have this, great thing in there. It could easily be like, hi, I stopped by your house when I was in the neighborhood the other day. I noticed that you had some beautiful roses in the front yard, and I wanted to compliment you on those. By the way, I'm a realtor in the area, and I'm here for anything you may need, whether it be help with neighborhood events, or even as a resource for a vendor or something else you might need. Please feel free to reach out to me. Carlos. Done. That's it. And don't think, by the way, oh, now I've got to come up with a new one every time. No, a lot of times when I'm writing these notes, it becomes a script in your mind. I do the same thing over and over again. All the birthday cards I wrote this last week, I always put down in the corner now, hope this is your best birthday ever. Hope this is your best birthday ever. All of them are getting separate birthday cards. They don't know what I wrote in everybody else's, who cares? Does that one help?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my hand, my handwriting is not the best, but it's not bad, and it's not bad. I just was thinking that I've never really sent any handwritten note to anybody in my in my life. It's usually emails. Um, but I just feel like how many do you have in numbers of handwriting do you send a day, or do you have like a target or goal? Because I feel like writing and mailing it, putting in an envelope, it could be very time consuming. What's your like technique about that? Like that's usually your process.
It is very time consuming, and that's one reason why people appreciate it, because it sticks out. You know, um, as you guys know, anything that's mass produced, you know, when you get, you know, I get postcards in the mail from a bunch of realtors all the time. I toss them. Oh, I get people, you know, plumbers, same thing. I toss that. Why do I care? You know, it's like, these people don't know me. So anything that comes in the mail that's handwritten, I'm like, oh, I pay more attention to it. In fact, I schooled I told you that I'm an ambassador for our chamber, and I schooled last year our chamber on this because they tried to do the automated thing. And I said, you know what you just told me by doing this? I mean, they would send like a thank you and nobody would even sign it. They just printed out in different fonts, everybody's name, and thought they could mass produce it. I said, you told me my membership isn't even worth your time to sign this thing. And I said, don't send these out then. If this is how you're going to do it, don't even do that, because you're going to alienate people more than make them feel appreciated. And which is your goal? So now we actually get hand note cards from the staff. Now, sometimes, granted, you gotta, you know, it's different from door knocking. This is actually a business sending out a thank you card. So sometimes they'll have pre-printed stuff in there and then everybody signs it inside on staff. Still, that means something because everybody signed it. They took out the time. Something like this, yes, it does take more time. A lot of top agents I know, their goal is by the end of the week, sending anywhere from 5 to 20 cards to people, because and I know a story of a number of agents that, like, on Friday, let's say they go to the office, they don't let themselves leave the office on Friday until they write all those cards. So kind of by making, because we've talked about accountability and so on, and that's a little bit of their accountability to their self. Come Friday, before they go home, all 20 of those cards have to be written. So it kind of lets them know, like, oh, it may be 9 a.m. sunshine, but you want to get the start on those, because if you try and start them at 4:30, you're going to be here for a while. I also break it up. If I try and do all cards at once, I'm like, oh, my hand hurts. You know, I'm beginning like, oh, I need, you know, something. So I try and do it in chunks. You know, I try and do it in steps, sort of thing. But usually for me, like, I actually, I'm a big fan of the Buffini system, and I know his recommendation is 50 cards a month. And even if, like, I know that even his plans that he puts out there automatically include 50 cards a month, because the idea is you're going to be able to reach all those people and follow up. Now, of course, it's not just the cards on their own, but it really deepens that relationship more. And, you know, it allows people to have a follow-up. And let's say you even sent it, your door knocking, you send it to all these people, or, you know, let's say, Carlos, that you door knocked 50 homes, and you spotted 10 homes out of there that there's some reason to send a card. Either, you know, hey, thank you for your time. I appreciated the conversation, blah, blah, blah. Or like, they weren't there, but you think that, hey, they may be somebody who might be transitioning soon. So, you know, you let them know, like, hey, I stopped by your place. You have beautiful roses, you have a beautiful tree, whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. If you ever need anything, da, da, da. You know, that's going to allow the next time you door knock to have a follow-up conversation. Hey, you know, like, if they're home, by the way, I stopped by, you know, your place. I sent you a card. In fact, I don't know if you received it, but I just really wanted to point it out, and then you can go from there. And that's why it also helps whenever you do these things to also enter it on your CRM. And if you're using command, that's what you would enter the notes in on, because then when you keep track of this sort of thing, it makes it much easier to follow up and be like, oh yeah, I sent them a birthday card. Oh yeah, I sent them a note card. Oh yeah, I sent them a thank you card. Just makes it a lot easier to remember those sort of things. I mentioned I send out thank you cards all the time. And usually the routine I use is I have a reminder on the 28th of every month, send out next month's birthday cards. Okay, fine. But some months, like April, oh my God, April's packed with people's birthdays. So it's like I've gotten the first week done, but I have to enter that in my CRM because a week from, then, or 2 weeks later or whatever, I'll look and like, wait a minute, did I send Karen a card? I don't remember. I remember I sent Joe a card, but I can't remember if I sent Karen a card. Well, if I enter everything on my CRM, then all I have to do is look it up. Oh, I did send Karen a card. Okay, who's the next person? And it allows me to go on. So that way I'm not doing that, because I've done that to myself. I have not recorded the information. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, did I send them a card or not? And it's like, well, I don't want to send them 2 cards because then that's going to look stupid, and then you're in that sort of realm. So it really does help you keep track if you do it that way.
Can I ask a question? How would you suggest kind of like getting into the neighborhoods with high security? Like, so for instance, let's say somebody wanted to door knock in Beverly Hills, but everybody has like a huge gate or a hedge around their property. How would you go about that?
Bring bolt cutters. That's a harder one to do. And I get what you mean. That is a harder one to do. And also in some neighborhoods that I've door knocked, I'm like, I have the nannies answering, I have the housekeepers answering. In fact, when, I told you I was adjacent to Carthay Circle, and when I'm door knocking in that area, I had a lot of housekeepers answer. And I'm like, oh, okay. So there's a lot of housekeepers in this neighborhood. So then it kind of told me the time that I was door knocking during the day probably wasn't the best time to door knock. I probably needed to do it, either on the weekend or a little bit later, so I would catch one of the residents there. And even in Miracle Mile, then there's some of those homes that they've got gates and they've got that. And it's like, yeah, probably not going to be able to get in. It does make it more difficult. I don't have a good strategy to overcome that, because you could hop the fence, but then, that doesn't create great relations with the owners. It is a little bit tougher to do. Sometimes when you're door knocking, like on a weekend, more people are out. And so it may lend itself that you can do that, but every neighborhood's different. So, and some are just going to be tougher. I told you too, I sold a number of years ago in Outpost Estates up in the Hollywood Hills. Yeah, good luck door knocking that area, because, all those homes are these private roads going to each home. And, and then you're going up that steep hill, and that would be a challenge to door knock that area. That one is it's just not feasible, really.
Thank you.
Okay. Did I answer the question, or I just make it worse?
No, I figured it would be that sort of response. I mean, it's like with those types of neighborhoods, people tend to use people that they've already had used in the past, right? Like it's a different way to get into those neighborhoods.
Yeah. And then sometimes that can be a little bit tougher. And sometimes those, people in really affluent neighborhoods like that too, they may know someone. They also may have a financial planner and use kind of the financial planner as their resource and so on. That's why it's also good to go after the gatekeepers, as we call them. So, if you go after, people who do financial planning, if you talk to people, and this also includes, in fact, I just made that contact last week at that event, one of the women who does planning for Forest Lawn, because, and her and I kind of talked about that. It's like, yeah, people don't want to talk to me, but they realize they have to talk to me, because eventually they're going to have to make that transition. And so her and I, guess who's getting a thank you card, by the way, this week, so I'm following up with her. Because she's going to be a gatekeeper for me, and so I mean, we're talking about door knocking, but it's almost the same thing. Like in some neighborhoods, it's going to be harder to door knock, but if you get to the gatekeepers, you still kind of get into those neighborhoods, because they're the ones who control those strings. And let's say it's completely difficult to get into, like a certain gatekeeper. Like it's infamous that a probate attorney is going to be hard to get a hold of. They already have some people. But then you talk to whoever is the receptionist, you talk to the person who is their gatekeeper, and you make friends with them, and you bring in like cookies, or as you're there and you're like, well, thank you so much for your time. By the way, I really do appreciate your time. Here's a $5 Starbucks card because, I just want to pass on the love. You do something like that. Now you're getting on their good side, and they're going to be more in turn to recommend you or tell the gatekeeper, hey, you need to talk to Ashley.
Thanks, Rob.
Sure. Somebody gave me that advice years ago, and it was really smart advice. They said, hey, if you're having problems talking to the person, who's behind the door, talk to the person who can open that door. And that's what'll get you in. I knew someone that I think it was Darren Hardy. Darren Hardy, by the way, does a free subscription every morning. It's called Darren Daily, and it's great business tips. And he had one where he talked about somebody wanted to get into this business and they couldn't get in. So what did the person do? Made friends with the wife, and became like the wife was, and both of them were interested in different charities and different things like that. So this person just got interested in that. And I mean, it was just as easy as contacting and going, hey, I know this is a charity that you're really interested in. What can I do that could really help? Would a donation help? Or is there a meeting I could attend? Or do you have a fundraiser coming up that I could support? Something like that. That allowed them to form that relationship. And guess what? In turn, that was the gatekeeper that got them into the person they really wanted to talk to. And of course, in doing this, I know everybody on the line here, so I can, I would never doubt this, it's in the back of my mind, but I want to be genuine. You are being genuine. You are trying to get to know people and so on. And so it's people that comes through, and people know when you're being genuine. And like, I have a very a good friend of mine that he's kind of a gatekeeper, and he has a foundation for people with Alzheimer's. Yes, I support his foundation. But I also believe in his foundation too. So it's one of those things that, it's just a mutual thing. Anything else on this? Door knocking is going to be, I think it's really going to be big. I think that it's going to be a big part of the business with everything opening up again, and people feeling more comfortable. I think it's going to be a great way to get out there. Remember, a lot of agents who did this for a long time are out of practice, and when they're out of practice, that means they may even still have the skills, but it's not in their schedule anymore. And so, you can be that person that gets out there and makes a part of your schedule and get your unfair share. Guess what? We went long, I can talk. But I think this was really good. I'm really glad we covered it. And we will go ahead and talk about this kind of stuff some more. As you guys know, this won't be our only time.